Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to welcome everybody to the Public Works Committee meeting, September 21st, Tuesday at 2:40 p.m. We are doing this by digital platform here, and let's see, I would like to welcome everybody that's here. Present is myself, Bonnie Katz. We have Councilman David Banks, Councilman Vince Palizzi. We also have Michelle Fry. We have Robbie Cross. We have Margaret Tupper, Adam Winder, Dave Columbine, and Joe Girardi, I know are here somewhere on the phone. We have Kendra Brown. Kendra, who are you with? Where did I see her? She disappeared now.
She's with the captioning company.
Okay, okay. We also have Josh Warfel, our IT person, Janice Frank, our city clerk, and we have Jay Raymond, and you are with, I take the gas company.
Correct. JC Miller is also with me. He's the ops lead here in Williamsport.
And I see we also have Mayor Slaughter here. I think I have everybody. Okay, let's get, do we have the woman who from 801 Loeb Street? I'm sorry, I don't have her name on there. Janice, is she here?
It's Nicole Day. I sent her a link, but I'll try to call her.
You know what? We'll jump down then, okay? Let's go down to, there are 5 items on the agenda. So we'll go to number 2 first. UGI discussion status of current projects. Dave Columbine, you're up.
Yes. Yes. This is regarding an update of the projects that involve UGI, Kylie's or subcontractor, of course, with natural gas main and services, to discuss Catherine Street progress there. Also, the Tucker Street project, which is completed in terms of excavation and services and coal patching at this point. And the Park Avenue project, that's also a UGI project with JF Kylie, and that is under construction at this point with gas main approximately up to 7th Avenue and Park intersection. And John Raymond is here to discuss the current status. We just want to get into a discussion that there's going to be an extension of time limits for, say, the Park Avenue project if this does not get completed according to the City of Williamsport Street Restoration Program ordinance, with having it completed by the time the plants close for the winter, and also to inquire about hopefully getting the Catherine Street and Tucker Street projects, base repairs and milling and paving, again, no later than when the plants close for the season. And that's why John Raymond is with us today to discuss that. And John Raymond, I'd say you're up.
Okay. First and foremost, thanks for having me. I know with COVID, we're kind of in this virtual forum, but it's the first time I've met with you since last year. Currently going into 2022 or 2021, we were currently up to date with all our paving before this year project started. So starting this year, the first streets that Dave talked about were on the Lafayette Parkway project, which a good majority of that was actually in Loyalsock. However, it did go into the city. Catherine Street and Miller Street were 2 streets that were in the city. And then Tucker Street project, which was just completed. That project's 100% in the city. And then Park Avenue project, which includes Park and Rose. That project's currently in progress. It's probably about 40%, maybe 35 to 40% complete at this time. We do, however, anticipate with the staffing that we have on that project, we will complete that before the October 31st deadline to keep us out of an extension into the moratorium period. So that's basically the status of the projects. What I wanted to discuss with the city today is in regards to restoration going into fall. So obviously each year we work within the ordinance that the city sets out in terms of how we do base restoration and mill and overlay. I work with Dave and Joe on that. You know, the process is pretty smooth. However, with losing the first quarter of this year to COVID, not doing any work in the first quarter of this year, projects are getting done later in the year, obviously. Our main contractor to do the mill and overlay is Hallbakers, which is the contractor that you guys have. They have a concern about mill and overlaying streets that have only been backfilled for less than a month, which Tucker Street meets those requirements. Now on Lafayette Parkway, some of those streets have been done for 2 months and we have done the base repair on them. But in their opinion, they feel that the best option is to do the base repair now and do the mill and overlay in the spring. So I guess my question to the committee, would that be something that would be acceptable to the city? If not, certainly we can look at another option, but even the contractor agrees that we really should let these trench lines have time to sit, not sink, but basically settle before we do the mill and overlay. And actually, yep, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, John. Go ahead, John. Finish yourself. I'm sorry.
No, so, and I don't know if you guys deal with Loyal Sock at all, but we just actually had the same conversation with them. Now the first project that we did there on Blair Street, that was completed in April. We were able to get in and mill and overlay that after we let it set. However, Lafayette Parkway, with the same advice from Hallbakers, they've agreed to let us do the base repair and then come back April 1st and do the mill and overlay to give it some time to settle through the winter months. And the main thing is, this is an extensive project area. You're talking about probably anywhere from 10 to 12 streets. So what I'd really hate to see happen is for us to come in, do this work, and then be called next year to have to come back out and repeat it. But I do want all the base repair on these projects to be completed before fall. Just wait till spring to do the mill and overlay.
Okay, just to add into that, typically, John, the procedure which we've gone in the past is that you're going to put in a formal request. These guys are going to recommend or not recommend it, and it goes to council for approval.
Okay. Yep.
Follow me. That's typically the process it goes through. So I would suggest that you get a written proposal out at the next public works meeting. We bring this all back forward, the project that you wish to request for the reasons that you're saying. And then public works is going to say yes or no, and then they'll go to council for their approval.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I will get that. I will get that drawn up. And Joe, would it be easier for me to put each project as a different, or do you want me to just put each individual street and maybe do cross street to cross street? So that way they know what area we're talking about.
I guess my question is, if I'm correct on it, originally you submitted drawings to us for the actual construction of these projects, correct?
Yes,
basically,
correct.
What we're going to do is, right. So you're going to basically turn around and request an extension of time based off those drawings that you submitted to us previously.
Okay.
Follow me?
Yeah.
And then council will then approve that. If I'm correct, Dave, is that typically the way we'd want it?
Yes, I would suggest, John, maybe we can list them just as like Catherine Street, just specifically Catherine Street, because that's the only part that's in the city from that project. Then have Tucker Street listed as, I don't think we're going to need to know intersection parameters, but I think what's going to be helpful is to have like Tucker Street, Meade, Catherine, areas that were affected, street names that were affected with the construction.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, and Miller,
Yep.
Miller actually, half of Miller Street's actually owned by the city as well.
Right.
That's also in there. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And certainly, this certainly isn't the way that, that we like to do business. My preference would be to have all this buttoned up, before winter. However, there's no arguing with Mother Nature. We know fall and winter is coming. So I just want the city to have, a good product in the end, a good drivable product. And, if you go up to, Campbell Street and you go either 2 or 3 streets in either direction, those are the areas that we've worked over the last couple of years. And you can see from the restoration standpoint, I think we've done a really good job, making sure the restoration is very well. And this will be the same way. It's got to be done in sections.
Okay, Mr. Raymond, any questions from Dave Banks or Vince Pelizzi? Yes, Vince.
So to clarify, please, Mr. Raymond, you're saying you want to do the base coat and then wait to do the top mill and overlay until the spring. So can you explain the base coat? I understand the top mill and overlay. Does that mean that you're going to see, or the top inch and a half, 2 inches of all the sewer grades, all the manhole covers, all of that will be exposed? Is that because it will not have that top mill and overlay coat?
No, it won't be exposed. We'll bring that up to grade. So it won't be exposed.
Yeah, it'll be all level.
It'll be all level.
Very drivable.
And yeah, and if you, well, I wish I'd had some pictures to show you for, what we just did on Lafayette, that it'll be the same exact process.
Well, John, they actually have on my report, I try to give them a picture or two of actually some of these street repairs that you guys do in the water authority. So they have 2 of them, one from the project on Lincoln, and they also have, which is the water authorities, I believe. And then they also have the one you did up on East Lundy Drive, Florence. So basically they're going to cut the areas they cut, they'll bring that up to the top coat. And then what they'll do is come spring, they'll mill the whole half of the road down and then repave it.
Yep.
Joe, can I jump in real quick? It's Adam.
Sure.
My only request through this whole thing would be, and it's not directed towards UGI or any specific utility company, but since the backfilling is happening so late in the season and there's a chance there will be settlement, there's a chance that when the snow does fly, that my plows will pull the base repair out if there is settlement. Can we throw the caveat in that within 24 hours, UGI will come out and make any necessary repairs?
That's definitely, we will certainly babysit that through the winter, Adam. And actually what I did with Lafayette, I took Randy Stover out after the base repair was done, and we walked the project for the same exact concern with the plows, to make sure that there's no low areas or anything like that. If there is, we can put additional scratch coat on to bring that up where it needs to be, with our paving contractor.
I appreciate it, John.
Yep. And the other thing is too, and Dave can contest to this, we have been using a high performance cold patch on our trench line. That's really doing a good job for us. That's what we'll, the temporary repairs, unfortunately, that's what we'll have to use because we won't have access to hot materials, but we will be using high performance cold patch to make those temporary repairs.
And typically that's what we require once you can no longer once the asphalt plant closes, that's what we do. And usually it's in the resolution when we pass those at city council, you'll read that portion of it.
Okay.
I just had one more question, if I could, Bonnie.
Sure.
So again, just I'm understanding correctly, Kylie is doing the contracted work. After that, they're going in, they're backfilling, they're cold patching the pre-existing or the previous trench. And then come spring, Hall Bakers is going to come mill everything down and actually conduct the entire repaving.
Well, Not exactly. Hallbakers has been doing the mill and overlay, but some of the base repair work, Big Rock, who's our subcontractor for our paving, they've been doing a lot of the base repair, and then Hallbakers will come in and do the mill and overlay. As the way it has been working. I'm not saying that we're not open to doing it differently, but normally Hallbakers likes to do the mill and overlay work, not as much the base repair. They like to have that done, and then they come in and do what they have to do.
The only thing I would say is, John, if you're going to piggyback on the city's street reconstruction project in the spring, there's always a chance it could be a different contractor.
Okay.
Dave,
Yeah.
John, but you don't, yeah. John, you
Dave,
don't
any
have to do that.
questions? Dave Banks, do you have any questions?
I do have one, Bonnie. Mr. Raymond, due to this delay now, is there any expectation that would delay any projects next year if you're going to be catching up in the spring?
Well, actually, and the one good news that I failed to mention is when Park Avenue is complete, 100% of the cast iron in the city has been remediated. So actually the large projects, the nature of the projects we've been doing the last 6 years, pretty much that period. I mean, we're going to go into a period where we're going to do bare steel, but the large cast iron projects in the city limits are basically done after this year. So my anticipation would be, though, that, and what Loyal Sock kind of held us to as well, is they want this mill and overlay work done next spring before we would start major projects in Loyal Sock. And I would want the same for Williamsport. So basically we would get all the base repair or all the mill and overlay work done and then start our new projects, which would probably be an April timeframe.
That's what we always ask, that those are completed first before new projects are started. This is not, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe and Dave Columbine, this is not the first time that this has come to us from a utility.
No,
and we understand that we do want the settling, so we do get a good road.
yeah, it does happen from time to time. This isn't the first, I guess, rodeo we've been around. And like I said, typically in the resolution, they have 45 days from when the plant's open to complete the project, is how it's put in the resolution.
Okay, so Mr. Raymond, you are going to get a resolution to us to bring to council in 2 weeks, okay?
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today.
You're quite welcome, and thank you.
Yep.
Okay, next thing on the agenda, next item.
Wait a minute,
we are
Bonnie,
going to
I have
go.
one more question.
Oh,
Sure.
yes.
Dave wanted to say something.
Hey, John, I just want to mention, you don't have to wait for the city to have a decision made on who's going to be the low bid contractor for doing the milling and paving. Through Penn Bid or through on your own contact, you could probably work solely with Hallbaker or another milling and paving contractor, and possibly to get locked in now early rather than wait until next year's bidding process. And when Hallbaker's already getting a list of roads to milling and paving, to wait for the city to decide on who's going to be the milling and paving contractor.
Yep, correct. And what we would like to do, Dave, the main reason that we do utilize your contractor is because of the sheer volume of work that they do. Obviously, it's like buying something in bulk at the store. We always get a better price that way. But Hallbakers is actually on our contractor list too. So we have contract line items with them, so they can do work outside the scope of the city's project work. So yeah, being that that work has to be done at the beginning of spring, it may work, it may not work with you guys picking a contractor. So yeah, we'll get the work done. If we can use your contractor, that would be our preference. But we can use our contractor that we have here in Williamsport, which is Big Rock now, or Hallbakers. So the work will be done starting in April. And the other thing I wanted to note too is, Dave, in your email, you're going to have cut sheets for Miller and Catherine, as well as the entirety of Tucker Street. And I also sent a spreadsheet of the random cuts that are going to get done before fall too. So all random cuts, if it's just a random cut on the road and we're not going to do a mill and overlay, those will be base repaired and sealed. They'll be completed and 100%.
Yes, I did receive that, John. Thank you for sending that over to me. I took a little bit of a quick look at it this afternoon. I did want to mention something about the listing that you have for your randoms while we're discussing it very briefly, is that you have about 35 listed, but I'm coming up with quite a bit more in the way
Okay.
of random listings, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
Well, some of them, what I did is I took, the main thing is I took all project related cuts off. They fall within the cut sheets. But I think what we need to do is maybe get together again, Dave, and match up your open permits with my list to see where I may be missing a few. And I can do that as well.
Yeah, that's what we'll need to do, because I'm having quite a pretty good, fair to large number of outstanding randoms that I need to discuss with you. And,
Okay.
and on your spreadsheet listing, yeah, you want to indicate what the permit number is, because I noticed you do have the address and location and those items, but I do need to have the permit numbers associated with that so I can close it out.
Yep, I will do that. Usually what I do, Dave, is when I submit, once they're completed, I put the applicable permit number on.
Okay.
I'm going to
All right.
be going to North Carolina next Monday, but the week, as soon as I get back, the beginning of October, I'll reach out to you and we'll get that list tidied up.
Yeah, we want to try to get this taken care of before you put it out there for Big Rock to come in to do the randoms.
Okay, absolutely. As always, I appreciate, the coordination that you and Joe provide.
No, thank you. Appreciate it very much, John.
Yep, you guys
Thanks,
take
John.
care.
Okay,
Thanks.
anything else, Joe? Dave Columbine?
That's it at this point.
Okie dokie.
Thanks.
I thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda is, if Robbie, Margaret, and Michelle, do you have time that we can go back to number 1 first on the agenda? Or do you have an appointment? Any of you have appointments? You're on mute.
I'm good with whatever you'd like to do, Bonnie. I'm here for you.
Okay, because Mrs. Day has been here since last week, 2 weeks ago. So I would like to have her
Yep.
get on the agenda.
We
Okay, let's go
understand.
back.
That's fine.
Okay, let's go to item number 1, discussion about gas line at 801 Logue Street. Dave Columbine. He didn't hang up, did he?
It shows that.
Hello?
Hey, Bonnie, before you
Dave.
start, are you sure she's here? Because I don't see her
Yes.
video.
Yes, Nicole Day is her name. Yeah, Nicole Day.
I'm here.
Okay, there
Yep.
she is. All right.
Okay, Dave Columbine, where are you?
Yes, I'm here, Bonnie.
Okay.
Yeah, approximately on August 24th, just recently here, I received a request from Nicole Day. She is interested in a natural gas service at 801 Logue Street in the city of Williamsport for the purposes of replacing a solid burning fuel heating plant that's located in the basement as a space type heating from the basement. And then their thoughts are in the future, replacing a solid burning fuel, say up in the first floor area, and also kitchen appliance. She suggested a range in the future, and also a gas grill in the future. The problem we run into here is that is a recently paved street, Logue Street recently paved, approximately August 2020. So it falls within the 2-year moratorium requirement. We didn't feel that it was considered to be an emergency, so we had not approved it at this time. And that is the reason why we're here today, to discuss it with Public Works and Nicole Day regarding her interest in a street cut on 801 Logue Street.
Thank you, Dave. Nicole Day, thank you very much for coming back. And sorry what happened 2 weeks ago. there was a miscommunication. I'm going to open the floor to Vince Pelizzi and David Banks. Dave, do you have any questions?
I do. So, Mr. Columbine, the tie-in, is there a line already running down Logue Street, or is this such a tie-in off Grove or Almond Street?
There is currently a gas line in Logue Street. It's on the opposite side of the roadway from 801 Logue. It's located in a driveway area, which is across the street that services the home across the street from 801 Logue. Although the main is there are utilities that are between the curb and the curb to get to the north side of the street to 801 Logue Street. So that necessitates UGI to make cuts into Blacktop roadway to show that they have not disturbed any existing utilities that are in the roadway. They call them avoidance cuts, so that they expose it, they make openings so that when they go through those areas where they cross with water and sewer and other utilities, they'll make at least one, possibly two cuts there, in my estimation, which would lead to, obviously, a street cut.
And then my follow-up question to that is then what would the requirement be to for repaving? Is it curb to curb for that portion, or is it just a patch?
I would believe that UGI would possibly have, I believe in the area, two cuts. They might be 2x6s, possibly, to show that they're not disturbing any of the existing facilities or utilities that are in that area. I'd say there possibly could be two cuts there, maybe two 2x6s.
Yeah, the requirement is on cuts, all they have to do is patch that cut. They do not have to patch the area like we do. If they do multiple cuts down the street, they have to do the whole lane, but this is different.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously when they go in and do this, it would be backfilled 2A and then probably an inch and a half of cold patch until UGI makes arrangements with their paving contractor to come back in there and do the permanent restoration.
And then, okay.
I think to answer your question a little better, Dave, with the 2-year moratorium, it would then be full length of the road, curb to curb, that would have to be repaved.
It would if we overrode the moratorium?
Yes. Right, Joe? It would be the full length of the block, curb to curb, if they cut that road like right now.
No, we actually tried to pass something of that sort, but we never got it through council, or that was back about 3 years ago, Adam. So presently, right now on that, all they would have to do is just do is what they were doing on a road that was existing for 5 years.
That's not current.
That's not a current.
I guess I'm confused on the moratorium.
Well, basically what happens on the moratorium, once we have a 2-year moratorium, no one's permitted to cut in that street for 2 years, okay?
Unless it's an emergency.
Unless it's an emergency, like they have a sewer lateral break or a water main break, we can't help it, they're allowed to go in. If somebody wants to do a cut in a road, then what they do is they go in front of us, we will deny it, considering we felt it wasn't an emergency, and then they have an option going in front of this committee for a recommendation, for an approval or not an approval to do that cut in that area, but no, they won't do the whole road over again. I know what you're talking about. I was the one who wrote it up, and I was liking to see it happen. In case they did, then they would have to do the whole road over again from intersection to intersection. But that never got passed. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I wish it was. That'd be nice.
Oh, me too, because if you remember correctly, Logue Street was actually paved twice. We got it done. A month later, the water line blew, and we forced the water authority to pave the entire street again.
Okay.
Well, they did that section they disturbed.
I think they disturbed about 80% of that road was rippled up. Miss Day is shaking her head too, because she remembers that very well, as much as I do.
It was a big bubble under the street.
And was this a part of the paving project with Almond Street last summer?
Yes.
Okay. So the moratorium's not up until next summer.
Vince, do you have any questions?
The question I have, Mr. Columbine, Mr. Girardi, So there's a 2-year moratorium on cutting those streets that have just been repaved. So how far out would that push? How far out would that push this project until Ms. Day was able to get a cut in that road without having to seek a variance? What date was that? What's the earliest date that that could be accomplished?
Dave's saying that would be August, I believe, of next year.
August of next year.
Yes. Should be
Okay.
about 9 months from now, if I'm counting, thinking properly.
Question I'd have for you, Ms. Day, is you've already spoken to UGI, correct?
We did speak with UGI. They came out and marked everything where they would need to go at. And that's when we found out we had to come in because of the moratorium that we had to apply for, I guess, permission to cut the street. Yes. So we already have an open ticket, he said, with them.
Did UGI provide you with any kind of a time frame that it would take to do this installation once they begin?
So he said it was a pretty quick process. He said, because we were concerned about getting it done before the weather got cold and the ground froze. And he said their turnaround was quick. He couldn't guarantee me any time frame, not without knowing when we were going to be started. So I don't have any exact time frame.
Dave, go ahead. Dave Banks.
Thank you, Councilwoman Katz. So for Mr. Columbine or Mr. Winder, or anybody who knows more about paving than I do, would this have to be the high performance cold patch since we're going into that time period, or is this something that can be done with a hot patch?
It would be something that if this board's going to approve, they have the right to recommend how they want it done. Okay, what material is going to go in that hole, I'm saying.
Well, I guess
If
what
I'm
I'm
correct,
saying is, well, would it need to settle anyway, and that would put us in a high performance cold patch area?
In my opinion, yes.
Yes, I'm thinking the same thing, because you're only having a month or so before the paving season is over. If you do the base repair and the final fix, you have a good chance of it settling. So they'll wait till after, till the plant's reopen in spring.
My concern here is that, you know, we put a cold patch on it, or they put a cold patch on it. I'm not doing the work. And then it gets ripped up by the snow plow. Then we have additional road problems for something that isn't an emergency situation. That's my main concern.
Can I give my only concern, and it's not that I am against doing this by any means. It is just, you have a nice new stretch of roadway. You're now going to put possibly 2 cuts in it. You're now going to make those sections of the roadway weak. The roadway is not going to last as long as it potentially could have. And like I said, I am not against this. I certainly feel that if there's an opportunity to give Ms. Day natural gas into her home, I think it's definitely a benefit for her, and I'm 100% supportive of it. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware of what could potentially happen if you make these 2 cuts.
And I have to concur with Adam. I understand her situation, what she like. Again, this is not what we would consider an emergency repair. We don't have a broken water line. We don't have a broken sewer line. If it was, they'd be done by now. They'd already be in the road. And let it set another nine months, maybe a year. Personally, I think I know her concern, but I believe that would be the best way to go. I have to concur with Adam. I think Dave's in agreement too with that.
I mean, Joe and Dave, you can give me your opinion. I think if you did allow it to happen and you set standards for how far back the 1.5 mill had to be to make it so that it was further than just the typical 1 foot back around the hole, and you went curb to curb in a certain width of the roadway, it may be better, may hold up longer than just repairing 2 cuts.
Right. I do agree with that too. Making it one larger area maybe to be better than just 2 short little cuts, because now you have 4 seams instead of 8 seams instead of 4. I mean, I do agree.
Now, we don't really have the legal framework currently to require that though, do we? That's something that would have to go through an ordinance change.
Well, I mean, I would check with the solicitor, but if like Joe's gonna bring a resolution forward because you guys are interested in overturning this decision of the codes department, I think that you could put stipulations in it. What's your thoughts, Joe?
Yeah, I would say because they're going for a recommendation, just like the zoning hearing board. Zoning hearing board can put conditions upon it. You can approve it, condition upon them making it from curb to curb as wide as you feel to cover the area. Yes, you could.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
I guess in my opinion, you're coming to a compromise to accomplish a common goal with making sure that we're not destroying a roadway for the rest of Miss Day's neighbors and upsetting them at the same time, if that makes sense.
Can I ask one thing? I believe Miss Day, or Mrs. Day, I apologize, is this is in conjunction with a renovation of a basement, am I correct? The basement's not renovated at this point.
We did put the money into the basement already, but don't have a real heat source down there. We have a wood burning fireplace that we don't use.
Right, and the current heat you use now is oil?
No, we have electric heat.
Okay, all right.
So we have I think we have about 1,500 square feet down there.
Okay, and you have a wood burner basically that you heat the space with presently right now.
We've never used the wood stove. We had, in the past, we had an Eden pure heater in our laundry room down there, and that was basically the only part of the basement we used in the winter.
Right. Right.
I think what I can say here, what we usually do is we usually take the recommendations from our streets and parks and our codes officers and our resolution. And for me, I think we have to listen to what our codes and street people are saying at this point. There is a moratorium, and I think in the interim, what I would like to see is what is proposed to do instead of 2 cuts, 1 cut, that it's curb to curb, and it's not going to destroy the street as much as doing 2 separate cuts. And that's not going to give us enough time to incorporate that resolution or put an amendment into the resolution for that in order to maintain a healthy street. And I think you can understand that we do want, and I use that word healthy because that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants a good street. And I think everybody can appreciate cuts do start destroying streets unless they're done from curb to curb. It just makes it more stable. So I don't know, my recommendation is that we listen to what our department heads are saying. And I don't know, Dave, Vince, what would you like to say? Dave?
I would agree. Thank you, Councilwoman Katz. I would agree. Streets are a much more complicated engineering, the piece of engineering than they seem like when we drive down them. I don't want to do anything that's going to, weaken the structural integrity of that street going forward. Unless there's an emergency, it just has to be done. My follow-up though is for Joe, and don't let me get you off track, Vince, if you have something to add here. But Joe, that ordinance changes, you were talking about full length of the street, curb to curb. Was that something that was ever put through a committee, or was it kind of dead by the administration?
The only thing it was is that I did prepare it and brought it through the past administration. In the past administration, the finance director and the mayor felt that they didn't want to do that. That's the only thing I can say. It was never brought through any of this new committee meetings or anything of that sort.
I was going to say, I never remember that, Joe.
Yep, it never came through the committee.
That seems like a really, I'd like to read, if you have it, Joe, the old document, if you could send that out, because that'd be interesting to see, because it might make it through this council. It seems like a good change.
Let's readdress it, since so many streets have been done and finished, and I think we would all like to see them maintained that way. Vince?
Just to interrupt, the purpose of the ordinance was because sometimes what will happen is somebody may redo a street. Take, for instance, the street that was done basic between 4th and 3rd, okay? There's several lots down there that aren't developed. We were concerned at that time, this is where it came about, that all of a sudden now they're going to develop it. Now we got to bring a sewer line through that newly cut thing. We got to put in fire service, and it'd be nice to get those services into those vacant lots prior to us doing those streets. That's how it all came about.
Well, let's get this going, Joe, okay? Let's not, so we can maintain, all right? Vince?
Yep. At this time, Mrs. Day, I concur with Councilwoman Katz and the rest of the department heads. You know, we do have a moratorium in place. There are every once in a great while an exception that can be made if it's an extenuating emergency circumstance. In this case, I just can't see that this is what this is. As much as I would love to help you out, you know, we all want to go toward a better quality, maybe a more affordable heat source. But at this point in time, I just don't see this need meeting the requirements to pass the variance for the moratorium that's already set in place. I hope you guys are able to hang in there for one more winter, of course. I completely understand where you're coming from. But right now, I agree with Councilwoman Katz and with the rest of the administration on this one.
Can I just ask one more question?
Sure. Adam, go ahead.
So, Joe, I think this is more towards you than anything else, because you're basically the decision maker currently on the permit. If we met with Hall Bakers, found a logical solution to how it work out to make the cut, et cetera, repair the road and hold the integrity of the road, would that be, and UGI agreed to those terms, would that be a suitable answer so that we're not just completely saying no, we're exploring every possible option first?
I don't have an issue with that. If we can come up with a solution to satisfy Ms. Day and also to satisfy, you know, the integrity of the road and making sure council and everybody's happy with the final product, Adam, again, I have no issues with that.
Does that sound suitable to all of you?
I think we'd all feel more comfortable with that.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't like, first of all, that we kept Mrs. Day waiting how many weeks for this. Number two, I know when you put so much time and effort into remodeling a basement like that and not have the heat and being told you've got to wait another year before you can get heat in there. I know that's, you know, something that you weren't counting on and never thought that would come to, you know, that would be one of your problems. And it is, you know, and you feel bad, especially when you're not aware of all the intricacies of what goes on in city government. I think we'd all feel more comfortable with that. How long do you think this would take, Joe, Adam?
I could probably get a hold of Hall Bakers on tomorrow to set up a meeting for Thursday. Joe, I don't know what your schedule's like Thursday.
I'll make myself available, Adam, just let me know.
Okay, because unfortunately tomorrow I'll be in the northern tier for a board meeting up there, but yeah, I can certainly see if we can get something set up for Thursday and meet the contractor out there from Hall Baker, our street paving contractor, and see if there's a viable option before we can.
I'll bring Dave along. Of course, with me.
Okay, then can this come back to us in 2 weeks and then we can say yes or nay? How's that sound?
Sure,
I don't think it's going to disrupt anything with you, Mrs. Day, and I don't think you'd have to really participate at this point. They would get back to you, okay?
Okay, and thank you so much for going the extra mile. I really appreciate that you're willing to look into that for me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Adam,
Hello.
I was gonna say, Adam Winder, you're batting 1,000 for amicable solutions for us here this past couple weeks.
I'll have a nice hot coffee out there if you want some. Just let me know what you want.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Take care now.
Yeah, Dave
Okay, next.
Dave Columbine wanted to add one more thing if he could.
Can I have a question for Nicole?
Nicole, you still
Nicole,
there?
you
Yes?
I'm here, yes.
Okay, you mentioned that UGI was out there. Can you tell me, did they flag out the location or was there a mark out of utilities?
They flagged the location in our yard where it would run. They didn't put anything on the street. He said he would wait until he heard from the city if it was plausible before he did anything like that.
Okay, I'm gonna ask that, UGI, they can call in for a one call and get utilities marked out there so that we have a more accurate location of where the existing underground utilities are, curb to curb.
Should I contact UGI about that?
Dave, I was just gonna reach right out to John Raymond, see if he could have somebody meet us there.
Okay.
Does that work?
Okay, yeah, if you want to do that, I think.
That way they're part of the conversation from the start and they know what they'll be getting into.
Right. And plus then we have a better idea where the utilities are located and what they actually have to cut and where they're cutting.
Right.
I'm sure they'll take good care of you, Mrs. Day.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Okay, you're quite welcome. Okay, next item on the agenda is discussion on trees on 4th Street. And Adam Winder, you are up, and let's say we have Robbie Kreis across, Michelle Fry and Margaret Tupper here for the conversation.
I guess I'll kick it off with, I do have Chad Eckert here with me. I think you all remember Chad from our many conversations and walks on 4th Street to discuss trees. He also brought the information that Vincent Controne from Penn State Extension had provided to all of us. And Mayor Slaughter apologizes he's not here. He was on, but then had to jump off for another Zoom meeting. He did want me to put out there that the discussion was held with council, and I believe he said council was all in agreement that we could look at the possibility of using rescue plan funds to cover the cost of the trees. But other than that, I'm just here to entertain the conversation with everyone else.
Are you the host, Adam, on this? Okay, let's go to Chad. Chad, I know there have been discussions on what kind of trees, what type of trees, and I think the discussion would be between you and Margaret Tupper, because I know this lady has done a lot of research on trees.
Well, no, I never finished the course.
You never finished it, but you did have a lot, you do have a lot of information, right?
Well, yeah, I do. I know what the city planted 40 years ago on the mains, the Zelkova trees there from, what is it? Rose up through the, right before the commercial district on 4th Street. They're 40 years old. They've now planted, the city has now planted trees on 3rd Street from Penn College up to, I believe, Walnut or the street after that. They've planted trees in conjunction with the Gateway Project at Lycoming College. They've planted trees and replaced trees along Little League Boulevard from Walnut up through Pine. And all this was done after we had talked with council and the city about replacing the 51 trees that were removed along our section of West 4th Street from Oliver Street, which is across the intersection across from Wham's, Williamsport Area Middle School, and all the way to Moore Avenue. The only trees that were replaced at that time were 8 of the 10 trees that were removed from Race Street, between Race Street and Moore Avenue. And only 8 of them were replaced. And I think that had to do with the city inquiring of land homeowners if they wanted trees. I'm not really sure why only 8 of the 10 were replaced, but that they're missing on the north side. There are trees missing on the north side. So that's sort of the history. Dentures at the time the 51 trees were removed said that they would replace the trees, and were very frustrated by the way the city didn't, to me, and this is my opinion, did not support us with PennDOT. I understand that West 4th Street is a state route, and it is PennDOT's jurisdiction. Is that the right word? I don't know that that's the right word. And they were, and that, and the fact that there were junction boxes underneath two intersections on West Fourth at the time that it was supposed to be repaid that belonged to Verizon, and they supposedly had to be moved. Well, none of that's been done. 2 blocks were paved. And the whole street was paved, but 2 blocks were dug down and the utilities were reconfigured underneath. And again, it was the Mora Avenue to actually that came to Arch Street at Dunkin' Donuts. So here we are. I've lost track of time. Nothing's been replaced in the West End except for 8 trees out of 51.
So what we're looking for is we're looking for the city to commit to putting the street trees that were removed back into the tree lawns. We're talking about a very small section of West 4th Street. In fact, it's not even a mile, it's 7/10 of a mile that they took the 51 trees out and have only put 8 back in. So recognizing that it's a state road, we're asking the city to do this because the state has just abandoned us, indicating that they won't be back until 2028. And many of us are skeptical that they'll even come back then. They had represented that they'd be putting all the meter pits into the sidewalks and redoing the sidewalks. They did none of that. Essentially what they did was come in and clear cut the trees and pave the road, and they've made it into a highway, and it's destroying our neighborhood. Robbie and I were talking earlier about the benefits of trees, and I won't go down the exhaustive list because I think there isn't anybody that thinks that there's no benefit to trees. But there are even benefits. Robbie had mentioned today that he read about increased retail sales in areas and neighborhoods that have trees, and that's a benefit that admittedly I hadn't even really considered.
I have a quote, Michelle. I have a quote from an article. Trees are the only infrastructure that can add value over time. Right. If they are maintained properly, if they are given the care that they need to thrive and to provide the shade and the benefits that trees provide a community, they will add value to our neighborhood. Taking them out was not beneficial to this community that we live in.
Yeah, I agree, Margaret, and I tend to think that the city probably should never have allowed them to be removed in the first place. Right. They were healthy trees, and none of the project that they promised to do was done. So now, the city let them remove them. Okay. Let's get the city to commit to putting the street trees back. And then if we can get our donor again for the trees, that'd be great. But it is going to cost, the city's the one that's going to have to put in the time and the expense to get all those trees planted back where they were removed.
I'm going to throw this back to Chad and Adam. Chad, what kind of trees would be beneficial on 4th Street at this point?
I mean, it would depend on the site. Some of the sites are wider than others. So it really depends on the site. In the wider areas, definitely do a bigger trees like Zelkovas work really well, hybrid elms, accolade elms, honey locust. There's quite a few different options we could use. If there's any place where we can plant behind the sidewalk, I'm not sure where we are with that, but there's some smaller like flowering trees that people would like. I don't know. It would really
Here's the thing, Chad, we really want them to be street trees. And if that's not front lawn trees, we'd like to see the city go in and replace what was removed without the need to, ask each individual homeowner. We want to see it just corrected and restored to what it was before you let PennDOT in there. So we're not looking to put trees in front yards. We don't need the city's help with that.
Right.
Robbie, I see your hand up. You're on mute though. Take yourself off mute. There you go.
Thank you. I just would enjoy knowing where the city stands on this. It does seem like PennDOT ran roughshod over the whole tree consideration. And there is so much value in trees. It's astonishing to me that we let it happen. It seemed to me that we had a commitment from virtually everyone on city council that trees were a very good thing and that we would support keeping them or at least replanting them right away. Where does the city stand on that at this point?
Robbie, I agree with you. I think most of us were taken by surprise when they went in there and took all those trees down. We were not aware that they were doing it. And I think all of us were.
How'd they get permission to do it? Excuse me.
It's their highway and they did it. And I know it didn't come to city council. Adam, I don't know if the administration at that point knew what was going on. I doubt it. Can you address
give me
that,
a year
Adam?
on that, please. My memory's easy. What year would
If I could just give a quick explanation on at least how they were able to do it. It's kind of like everything else, you know, where you have your municipal government, but your state government is higher than them. Your federal government is higher than them. PennDOT was very adamant that they're not required to get a city permit. They're not required to follow city ordinances, etc. So that's how they just came in and got to basically be the bully and do what they wanted. We had no grounds to stand on. I mean, it's their right of way. It's their area. It's, you know, you could try to take them to court. You could try to do anything you wanted. I don't think we're really looking to go backwards as the administration or council. We're looking to rectify the issue. That's why Chad's here to talk about what types of trees. That's why the mayor put out rescue plan funds and spoke with council about the possibility of using that. The only thing I would ask is that we replant the trees. We make sure we look at sightline issues. And I only bring that up because of the multiple litigation that I'm involved in for different departments here at the city due to lawsuits of people saying that, you know, the tree hangs out over the corner, you can't see when you approach the corner, etc. So unfortunately, PennDOT took the trees out. I think we just need to make sure we follow all requirements to put the trees back in.
So what we're looking at is we're looking at to replace, I don't know how many trees we can replace. I like the fact that, Michelle, you said maybe go back to the donor and see if they would be willing to help.
Bernie and it was Dincher and Dincher that it was Bernie and Bernice Dincher that offered to replace the trees at the time. Please give me a year. My mind's fuzzy on the year that this all took place. It was a public meeting at the West End Christian Community Center in January, and the trees had already been removed.
Yeah, the years have gone by so fast. Dave, thanks. You had your hand up. Go ahead, Dave.
Yes, I believe that was 2019. The last time we had this conversation, Adam and Chad, I was under the impression that, what was it, 2027 or 2028 when they're going to come back through. If we put any trees in there, they're going to take them right back down.
No, we would have to have a guarantee that they wouldn't touch the trees that were. Why would we ask to do this to see them removed again?
Well, I'm trying. Yeah, right. I'm trying to get what we've heard from PennDOT. Was that the case with, you know? And then there's the other part of this for historical perspective is the reason that the work was done basically between the highway and Arch Street is because this project was cut into two different portions. So there are actually two different projects for PennDOT. There's the east and west portion, and there's a central portion, which is the longer portion. Am I correct on that, Adam?
You are correct. Is the area up towards the Wham's Middle School, the high school, that section was done at the same time as the section down between Arch Street and Moore Avenue. That's correct. And you're correct on PennDOT is looking to come back through in 2028. I just got a call from HRI last week. They were awarded the contract to do all ADA ramps on West 4th Street, and that is to start this fall.
So that's every corner they're going to be making ADA ramps on 4th Street?
Correct.
Dave, I want to speak to that concern for a second. And I think it's a very valid concern. And so I think There are a couple of things that we could consider. I think the best option would be a memorandum of understanding with PennDOT that if the city were to devote efforts and resources to put these trees in, that PennDOT would just simply leave them alone looking forward. And if we could do that, I think that would cure that issue. The other thing that I think we could do, perhaps even in conjunction with Plan A, is to make it a big to-do with big fanfare, putting the trees back in. And it would be a PR nightmare, I think, for PennDOT to come in a second time and remove the community trees if we were to make a big thing about restoring them, especially if we're using our own resources to fix something that PennDOT, quite frankly, screwed up. So, I think we got a PR issue, but I think better is if we can get them to sign a memorandum of understanding saying that, hey, we may be back in 2028. That's our plan. Plans certainly change. I mean, their plan was, to put the meter pits in the sidewalks and do the sidewalk work, but that plan changed. So, they can acknowledge that it's their plan to come back in 2028. We can believe that if we want to, but it'd be better for them to say, if we're back, we'll leave these trees alone. I'm pretty confident that Chad is going to be able to pick out trees for us that won't, disturb sight lines or road work. I mean, we're not talking about putting the same type of trees that were removed from our community back. And I think, I don't want to speak for Robbie or Margaret. You certainly, the three of us would love to see, I had a giant healthy maple tree taken from me. I know that there's no chance I'm getting a maple tree back, so if we could just get something in those tree lawns, I think we can still benefit from those trees, acknowledging that we're not going to get native species. Again, what's gone is gone. I'm with Adam. We can't look backwards.
Right.
Well,
Now,
they took it. They took the trees. They're healthy trees and they took them for no reason. And there's nothing we can do about that.
right. Now, the suggestion I would make is, it's going to be a lot of work to do this, but we need to do a PA1 call for that entire stretch of roadway, because we don't want them to disturb the trees we're going to put in. So you want to stay away from the sewer laterals, the water lines, et cetera, and be 3 feet away from that.
Yeah.
So that there's no chance they're going to dig and have that collapse into their hole.
Well, I guess the good news, Adam, is that they put most of the meter pits and all that junk in our front yards. And it looks atrocious. And it's not where they said they'd put it. But with those meter pits being in our front yards, they are sufficiently at least 3 feet away from the tree lawn.
Right. We just want to make sure that they're away from where the line comes through to that meter pit as well. The gas line.
Yeah, I get you.
Stuff like that. So
I get you. It goes from the meter pit to the street.
Right.
So we got to avoid that whole row.
If they say they have to do something, we're not having them dig up right next to the tree.
Right. And to Bonnie had asked what number we're with. And I mean, we had 51 and we got 8 back. So I think it's fair to say that we should have at least 43 street trees put back into that strip there.
I would say that could be determined once the PA1 call is done, yes. Because like I said, you got to be cognizant of, you have double homes on 4th Street, single homes, et cetera, making sure that, we're away from utilities so that they don't destroy a tree. Like you said, we don't want PennDOT to rip them out, but at the same time, we've got to be aware of what the possibilities are there when they start working on that roadway again. So they can't say, well, you did this yourself by planting it so close to the line that we need to work on.
Right.
I have a question. How can the city let us know where where the trees potentially could be planted in front of, and the spacing of them? If you look at the Zelkovas on 4th Street from Rose to Hebron, they don't quite go to Hebron. Anyway, the street before Hebron, and I can't think of it. Anyway, there's continuity. There's continuity because they're all Zelkovas. Some of them are dying, so there's not continuity there. And they're old. If you listen to the Penn State Extension guy, and I can't think of his name either. Sorry, I'm trying to focus on trees. Anyway, what you need in a treescape is some kind of continuity. Some of the trees they took down one was almost 100 years old, and they took it down.
That's true.
Others had been had been haphazardly placed. I mean, there were flowering crabapple trees, for goodness sake, in between the street and the sidewalk, and with low-hanging branches. The branches were broken by school kids. There wasn't any continuity in what had been placed at times along 4th Street. So what I would like to see in terms of a cityscape is some kind of planning for the trees that go there, and knowing where the trees are, letting the city tell us where the trees could be safely placed and how many.
That's the
what-
point of, that's the point of the PA1 call. We need to have something determining where all the sewer laterals, water lines, et cetera, going into the homes are. Then Chad goes up and creates a plan. If you go look at Little League Boulevard, all the trees that you referenced that were recently planted, that
Yes,
was all designed and done by Chad Eckert. He is very good. He's an excellent person for this, but he has to have all of the knowledge in front of him first, laid out by all the utility companies. So
yeah, but Little League Boulevard was easy. I'm
just using that for
what
example.
utilities come off of Little League Boulevard, except for the senior citizen housing and the one Chapter 8 housing on the other
He
side?
does it throughout the entire city, Margaret. I'm just using that for an example. But if you give him a chance, he will work with you all once the PA1 call is done. You guys
Hey,
are more
Adam.
than welcome to walk with him when he marks out where we can plant the trees, go over the species with him. You guys can certainly be involved, but there's a process we're going to have to follow. It takes 3 days to get the PA1 call back. Then
Hey, Adam,
Chad can-
oh,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna, what is PA1 for those of us that don't know what that is? What is?
It's a process you have to follow before you dig. What it does is it's a call out service that puts a email out to all utilities to say to them, you need to mark these out. If you don't mark these out in 3 days, you will be fined.
Right.
So it kind of helps you map out what's underground.
They put paint on the curb, right?
Curb, street, et cetera, yes.
The sidewalk.
Each utility company has a different color, so Chad can identify that this is where UGI is, this is where sewer, water, et cetera. He can recreate a map, he can walk the street with you guys and mark out, look, we could potentially put a tree here, here, all the way down through.
I noticed on Little Big Boulevard also, it was not one consistent tree. There's a variety of trees. I didn't take the time to see if there was a pattern to the type of trees planted, but what type of trees were planted. And the tree lawn there is very wide, and we don't have that on 4th Street. We have a variety of tree lawns, and some places it's non-existent.
Right.
Vince,
Little League Boulevard.
Vince,
Little
Vince,
League
what do you
Boulevard.
have? Excuse me, Vince, your hand has been up.
Thank you, Bonnie. So I've been sitting back here listening to everybody go back and forth. And just for my own edification, I want to review a couple quick things and then go over what this potential plan moving forward would be. So we're all on the same page. Previously, when PennDOT came through, they cut down all the trees saying that they were in their right of way. Am I correct, Mr. Winder?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And when we had approached PennDOT and said, you guys cut down all of our trees, we need to put trees back in here for the sake of our residents and for the sake of the beauty of our city and to keep the trees going. And at that time, PennDOT pretty much said to us, well, you go ahead, do what you want, but it's our right of way. And when we come back, we're going to cut them all back down anyhow. Is that correct?
Well, yes and no. Initially, it was no trees because wider sidewalks. It took a lot of persuasion to direct PennDOT in the direction of, yes, we need to put trees back in.
Okay, so where we're currently at is now PennDOT has agreed that at some point, we can put trees back in. Is that safe to say then?
Yes, they're okay if we put trees back in now. They just want us to do it in a delicate fashion so that it does not interfere with their project.
Okay, hence your recommendation for the PA1 call, and then to have Mr. Eckert next to you go through and create an extensive plan for which species of trees, where they should be strategically located. That way, it would preclude them from being removed, cut down, whatever it may be, interfered with in the future when PennDOT comes back through, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that's where that's our understanding, our current understanding of this process. Mr. Cross, Ms. Fry, Margaret, I'm sorry, I don't see a last name for you. I understand your frustration with this 100%. I love seeing trees around. I think what was done, and they just chopped them all down, I don't agree with one bit. I would love to see PennDOT have to pay for the entire process of having to replant whatever trees we would like to decide because of this. However, the way the law is set forth, that is their state right of way. I don't agree with it. I'm not happy with it. But it is what it is. So moving forward, I think with what Mr. Winder's proposing of having a PA1 call done, seeing exactly where our utilities are at. After that, having Mr. Eckert come out. Mr. Winder, Mr. Eckert, I don't know if you look to have resident input from the members of the community there that reside along those sides of 4th Street as far as what trees they may like to see. It sounds like Margaret would love to see a little bit of continuity. I heard Ms. Fry mention a couple of variety of species of trees. Are you going to seek their input so we can try to put something together and then approach PennDOT? Would we have to approach PennDOT then for said approval of such a plan?
So I think it's very imperative that we get the community to be involved. I think it's the best direction to go because it is their neighborhood. As far as PennDOT, I think it, naturally be in our best interest to share with them what our intentions are so that if there's something they're doing right in that area, they're putting a tree, let's be honest, they have to have the plans done already. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. They definitely haven't done by now. That we could make sure that we're not going to interfere with anything. They're not going to interfere with the trees. And we just move forward with planting the trees at that point. I think we did our, at that point, we've done our due diligence. We've tried to work with them on making sure that everybody's on board with where the trees are going so that we don't end up back to where we are.
So, Dave, if you don't mind if I just follow up real quick with this statement. Thank you. I appreciate that. So in an aspect, it almost sounds like this may end up being a multi-phase project. Given our one call results, given the plans that PennDOT already has with the work that they look to do, maybe the first phase of this tree planting project is that we come to a group conclusion that we plant trees in specific areas that won't interrupt any PennDOT construction, in the next couple of years. And then once that phase of construction's done, then we can go in and replant trees in those areas. Does it sound like even maybe that is something that's feasible here?
I think so. I mean, I'll defer to Chad because he is the licensed forester. He is a certified arborist, et cetera. He's got every possible thing you could have to do anything with trees. So just for a little bit of his background, he is highly educated on trees.
Chad, I would love to see us plant a whole bunch of those money trees if you have any.
That'd be great, right?
In my mind, I would say that, and Chad can correct me if I'm wrong, this would be an early spring plant. To actually do it, have it planned out correctly, not get hastily moving, to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row, we would be planning early spring.
What year are you talking about, Adam? Are you talking about next spring, 2022?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay.
Oh, but I just want to make sure before we jump the gun and make any promises or anything here.
Too late.
That
Sorry,
that whatever that legal framework between the city, the MOU, or whatever it may be, an approval of Chad's plan is in place. Because what I don't want to see is, in 2027 they come along and they chop down a bunch of 6-year-old saplings. Because we did not have that framework in place.
We get that memorandum that Sean was talking about. Would that make sense to get a memorandum from PennDOT?
Right, and that's the point of trying to do things strategically, of doing the PA1 call, making sure we outline where the trees are. Chad can certainly, we have drawings of West 4th Street, so we can actually identify in front of what house, where the tree will be. We submit that to PennDOT and we give them, 30 days to review. We be fair. We don't just be they are and hastily doing something. Now, naturally, we would send it to them certified so that we know that they received it. And we wait for a response back from them. If they don't give us one, then, we push the envelope even more. But I would like to say, pending council approves funding and everything else, we can do this early spring.
Before we go into the, Margaret, I'll get to you in 2 seconds. Funding wise, I would like to see if Dincher and Dincher would still donate the trees. If not, then we know where to go with our discussions. Who was in charge of talking to Dincher and Dincher? This was before my time.
Chad Eckert used to be employed by Dincher and Dincher, so
I've talked with,
I can reach out to him again.
yeah, he actually talked to Chad about it. Bernie Dincher. Bernie Dincher actually spoke to Chad about it, and that's how it came to city council and the administration originally.
Fantastic. Margaret?
well, I also had talked with them to the point of they wished I'd go away, but anyway, I forgot my question. Sorry, I'm old. It's gone. It'll filter back, but the idea is gone.
Margaret, I'm 38 and that happens to me all the time. So
I was going to say, who doesn't that happen? I was going to say, walk into another room, walk back in, and you'll remember.
Well, I'm hoping the idea does that. It's up there floating around. It's not.
Okay, we'll go to Vince right now. Vince, go ahead.
Just one quick question. I think Chad, you're probably the one most qualified to answer this. Last time we purchased trees, do we have a purchase price list based on age, species, and height when we do go to look at purchasing trees?
Yes.
Yes, we have an availability list from Schichtel's Nursery where we get a lot of our trees. They're bare root trees that we can plant spring and fall. And the prices range anywhere from $75 to $125 a tree. Probably average around 100, a little less per tree, depending on the species.
That's what they did in front of our house, Vince. We had a tree that fell from a storm, and we got a tree back from the city.
Not that I want to hold anybody up, but Margaret, I think her idea just came back.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Margaret.
Which PennDOT office approves this? Does it go through the state office in Harrisburg, or is it just the one in Montoursville? Because they were the ones we dealt with, and it never went beyond Montoursville.
So due to my current role, I now have a relationship with the Deputy Secretary of PennDOT. So we will send it to District 3 as well as to her.
Which is Harrisburg, right? It's
Yes.
gone up the ladder.
Yes, Harrisburg.
Okay, because I when we met with Montoursville, I felt that there was no cooperation with them at all. They weren't even willing to run it up the flagpole, run it up the chain of command.
They weren't very friendly either.
No,
they aren't.
And we left that meeting. Bernie Dincher was a very angry man with the way they handled us and our.
Okay, so now we have a plan in place. Adam, you're going to take care of PA1 call and also sending information to PennDOT and getting an MMU. And then we'll take it from there. After those two things are in play, then we'll have a meeting with Chad and the neighborhood people to walk the streets to find out what kind of trees and where they'll be planted. We'll know where they'll be planted because PA1 call will already have it marked out. So other than that,
determining where the trees are going to be planted, or Chad Eckert's going to work with PA1 in terms of where the trees can be planted.
PA1 calls the one who will be in charge of that.
No. PA1 call will tell us where the utilities are. Chad Eckert will define where we can plant the trees.
Right.
Yeah.
That was my understanding, and that Chad would know where to go from there.
Yes.
That's not what you were saying, Bonnie.
I'm sorry. I knew up here in my mind what it was saying, but it wasn't coming out correctly.
Okay.
But this is where the plan is at this point. Okay. And at least it's a start, and hopefully we'll have trees planted by spring. Okay, and get it looking better.
Will this be written down in the minutes of this meeting? So actually is.
It will, and we'll do you one better. We'll even bring Chad back to the next Public Works meeting in 2 weeks to give an update on where we are with the PA1 call, because we should certainly have that back probably next week, and just, we'll have Chad do a little exercise up there, and
We have a map.
he will have a map.
Will the same numbers work next week or 2 weeks from now?
We'll have Janice Frank put that out to everybody.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And Robbie, this meeting is always on YouTube, and yes, the meetings are already, you can get a copy of the minutes.
Excellent, excellent.
Okay?
Yep. thank you.
Janice is in charge of that, right, Janice?
She's muted.
She's muted. I know she's there.
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you to council members, Adam and Chad. I know that you're not the only two city employees working on this, but you're spearheading it. So we appreciate all your efforts and your time, and everybody here on the Public Works Board. It sounds like, where we weren't able to make progress with PennDOT over the last few years, it looks like we are finally making progress here locally ourselves. And I think this is just one of those situations where we have to tend our own garden,
Exactly. Take care of our own.
I hear Mr. Pelizzi, PennDOT is responsible for this and they ought to come back and fix it. But to the extent that we can't make them do that, we do appreciate the city fixing it.
Newberry appreciates your efforts.
Yes.
Fantastic. No.
For listening to us, even though I get contentious at times.
You do very well, Margaret. And
I'm
I
going to
love
go
your
ahead and
research.
take off
Okay,
now.
thank
but
you all very much. Thank you very
again.
much.
Thank you, Bonnie, for including us.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, terrific. Talk to you all later.
All right.
Next item on the agenda, Adam, you are up again, discussion on the recycling center.
Oh, this is my favorite one. So once again, I've been reviewing footage of the recycling center because we have people dumping items there for the 9,000th time. We do have 4 functionable cameras. The issue is we have 8 of the very large red recycling containers with very narrow walkways between them. The recycling center has switched over to very small holes to put the recycling in. So what I'm running into is you'll watch it and individuals will walk between the containers. They'll have bags in their hands of the recycling. I'm assuming they get frustrated because it takes so long because you have to pull each individual item out and slide it in the hole. They get frustrated, leave the bag lay. You'll watch, let's just use a number of 25 people walk between those 2 containers with that bag. And then when the county comes to pick up the bin, the gentleman from the county will actually take the time to pick all that stuff up and the bags of items, and he'll sit it over next to our sign that says illegal dumping will be caught on camera, etc. As doing his good due diligence of trying to help keep the area cleaned up, compiling everything to one spot. So you will never be able to catch every pathway between those containers because of the way that the recycling center is set up without installing basically a camera for every pathway. We have been lucky enough to catch the people that dump the larger items right out in the open. The biggest challenge there is you have to make sure that you can clearly identify the individual, identify the license plate, so that when the police department files their charges against the individual, when it ends up at the magistrate's office, it's not thrown out because somebody says, well, yeah, that's my car, but that wasn't me. You can't plainly identify me. I can tell you currently it's costing us about $20 a month to go over and clean up the recycling center, which I don't want to say this in a negative way, is extremely cheap compared to if I just try to have the police department go after somebody based upon a license plate number and not having a clear image of that person. It will cost a lot more money for the police department, myself, or whoever reviews the footage at that moment to have to go to a hearing where we can't clearly identify that that was the person that put the garbage there. I hope that helps in some fashion. I mean, the last thing we want to do is pull the recycling center out, because it is a great asset to everybody. And I'm going to say in Lycoming County only because so many other recycling centers have closed down.
Obviously, this is an ongoing problem and has been. Vince, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Bonnie. Adam, I know the recycling center has a specific layout of the bins and how they're situated and the degrees to which they're put in. Is there any way that we might be able to just broaden the space in between the bins to create a larger walkway, thus increasing our range of visibility in between those recycling bins for more accurate visual confirmation, so to speak? The larger space that you have in between those bins, I know the decrease in likelihood that you're going to have people throw stuff back in there, because let's face it, the higher the visibility, the higher the likelihood that somebody's going to get caught if they do something they shouldn't. So if we're able to increase the space in between the bins, who knows, maybe that might be a quick, cheap, easy fix to decrease the amount of garbage or refuse that's being left lying.
So it's a very good question. The only issue that we see when we looked at that possibility is the only way to do it is reduce the number of bins. And I mean, they dump those bins every day. They're in there picking up a couple of those bins, dampium. Once again, because we're the only one in this area left with the recycling center, they are loaded to the hilt, to the point that, you know, materials are actually falling out of them. If we reduce them, I think we're actually going to find more people leaving their plastic, their cardboard, et cetera, just sitting alongside of them. And I'm not even sure that we could truly prosecute those people if they can prove that it was recycling and they left it there only because the bins were full.
So Adam, I'm sorry, Vince, did you have to follow up? No.
Go ahead, Dave.
Thanks. So you're looking for more cameras, essentially?
Actually, I just ordered 3 trail cams today on Amazon, just to try to hang around there in mysterious places, and we'll move them around constantly to try to catch people. I mean, I spoke to Councilwoman Katz about this the other day, and I say this in a way that I hope people understand. Even if we were to prosecute 100 people, there's still going to be 100 other people that are going to dump there, only because of us being the sole recycling center in this area now. It's kind of like the brush pile obstacle. Until we contained it within being only city residents, having a card read system, et cetera. You know, that's how we deviated away from people illegally dumping other items that shouldn't be at our brush pile. You know, and the last thing you want to do is gate system the recycling center and restrict people from Lycoming County, because it is technically a Lycoming County recycling center, and we did receive a grant from the state to put it in there. So I hope that helps.
Vince, go ahead. Vince.
Thank you. No, I was listening to you, and yeah, anything that we do to actually, I would say, limit the availability to the center, I think will have a dramatic increase in just things being thrown out or the lack of recycling being done moving forward. My question is what is the current fine amount for illegal dumping?
I think it's a maximum fine of $300 last I knew.
What's the minimum fine?
Less than $100, I think.
Okay, so monetarily, you know, less than $100, some people are gonna, you know, they're willing to take the risk of not getting caught.
Right, because like, when we do find people, it really sucks because we haul everything in at once when we clean it up. We don't just determine, well, this is what that person dumped here. Let's take that to the transfer station separately and find out what it costs to dump that. We have to come up with a determination on what the amount was that it cost for us to dump it, manpower, et cetera, so that when the officer goes and finds them, that determines basically how high their fine is by the level or the amount of cost there was involved, determines the level of what the charge will be, whether it's a misdemeanor, a felony, et cetera.
So that's the way it's current. Thank you very much for elaborating, Mr. Winder. I appreciate it. That's the way it's currently set up. Bonnie, Dave, Adam, maybe you guys can help me. How hard would it be for us to change that and make it, a simple flat $2,000 fine for every instance that you get caught illegally dumping? I know, to me, throwing a bag full of bottles on the ground, I for the cost of $2,000, you bet that I'm going to go in there and make sure they all get to the required bins, or make sure that all the corrugated cardboard gets slid into the appropriate spot. I'm not going to risk getting hit with a $2,000 fine.
I guess the question would go to the solicitor. If city council could pass an ordinance that if you're illegally dumping within the city limits, this is what the fine is.
If we're able to make it just, illegal dumping at our recycling centers is one flat fee, and make that fee a very hefty amount, I would assume that people then would not want to take the risk of having to pay a very large sum of money just for the sake of being lazy. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, we might be able to restrict it to city property as well, maybe not the city limits that way.
Right. I mean, the parks are another good one.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I think when people, and I can't say this for everybody, but generally in my experience, people really don't change unless they absolutely have to change. And when you force people to change, especially doing something that they've gotten used to getting away with, that only happens when you hit them where it hurts. And for a lot of people, where that hurts is in their purse strings or their wallet or wherever they keep their funds. So when you start taking that away from them, yeah, then they'll go out of their way to make sure things are done right.
Maybe while we're looking into that one, we can look into defacing of city property or something to that extent. And the reason I bring that up is the band shell was graffitied sometime between the weekend and this morning with a lot of profanity. And, I think if we could start charging people and hitting them with a bigger fine, it may navigate away from that happening as well. Because it's the band shell, it's, our bridges, our traffic boxes, the river walk. The amount of time and money and effort we put into covering up the graffiti that people put out there is astronomical. And maybe if the penalties increase, maybe it'll hinder that process as well.
What you're saying then is that we don't have a resolution for defacing property, and we don't have a resolution on any of this then. So therefore, I think it would behoove us to do that. I think this committee can work on that. I, talk to Randy and start putting something in motion here as far as accomplishing that. I'm sad to hear that the band shell was defaced. I mean, we just spent a fortune painting and cleaning that up. So it just bothers me. Yes, Vince.
Thank you, Bonnie. Mr. Winder, do you have any idea of just generally what the city's cost is to purchase and install a camera? I'm sorry, let me be specific. Where there's a previous installation already had, like if we wanted to add cameras to the recycling center, do we have any idea about what that might cost us for each camera that we add?
Mr. Warfel, I see you on there.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So it all depends on the type of camera and exactly where we're putting it, if we're putting it on an existing light pole or not. Up at the recycling center, I would say you're talking about a cost of in the door with the equipment needing to power it if we do the work ourselves. With licensing and everything, $500 to $1,000 per camera. That's all expenses included.
Okay, and that includes running like the Cat 6 line, doing everything else that we need to.
Yeah, that'd be doing it ourselves. So that includes the material. That's not necessarily including labor for folks that are already on payroll, but that's including all the supplies.
Okay. I only ask because I'm looking at one right now. It calls for 4 megapixel, 2.8 millimeter starlight with 164 foot of IR, and they'll run you about $185.
Yeah, so you also have to then factor in the cabling, factor in the PoE network switch, the license, and then also the back end storage as well. So, yeah, you're going to come in 500 to 1,000.
But it sounds like maybe our fine amount should start about $1,000.
I would agree.
Guys, yeah.
We could start putting cameras up all over the park and the band shell too, for that kind of fine amount.
That would be, we've always said we should have more cameras around that area anyhow. We've talked about that. I can remember other people talking about it. So it sounds like that's something that we should look into eventually also. Good discussion. I think I will
jump in real quick once, Bonnie?
Sure.
So that was the goal with the 3 trail cams that we ordered this morning, that we would be able to make them mobile, put them at the band shell, move them to the recycling center. If we have a problematic area, set them up, inconspicuously, and hopefully catch the individuals that are causing the damage or defacing a property or whatever have you. Even to the extent of, I'm not sure if you all are aware or not, but the stop signs that keep coming up missing at Vine Avenue and Park Street. This morning, we found out that the PED buttons at 3rd and Maynard Street, I'm going to assume college kids, knocked them off of their mounts for whatever reason. It's just craziness, and it seems like harmless games to the people that are doing it, but very costly to the city. I mean, we're somewhere around $750 to $1,000 in loss this morning at 3rd and Maynard alone. Stop sign about $30 every time they rip one down, and it happens at least a dozen times throughout the college semester. So if we can put these trail cams up and potentially catch people and kind of set the precedence that we are going to go after them, it may help.
Yes, Vince.
Mr. Winder, when these instances happen in those areas, do we communicate that with Penn College and with their law enforcement?
We do, through the city police department. Everything that happens, we do an incident through the police department, and they naturally send it to Lycoming College as well. We've been in contact with Pat Marty. He's been trying to do everything he can to ramp up the Penn College police, monitoring that area even more. It's just like everything else, you only have so many people to be able to do the work, and you can't be there all the time. So
do we put up the tamper-proof bolts when we install the stop signs and such, the breakaways?
We did. We actually put 4x4 posts, concrete in the ground 3 feet deep. It was our latest adventure. They hooked up to the post with a pickup truck and pulled the whole thing out of the ground.
Oh my God. Oh, geez.
I think all we do is create the next challenge for these individuals. I know one time they went out to Sawzall and cut around the stop sign itself to let it lay on the ground to say, ha ha, we beat you at this game. It's kind of like a challenge for them to see, what can the city of Williamsport come up next that we can conquer.
And we pretty much isolated these instances to specific targeted geographic locations.
The stop signs, yes, Park Street and Vine Avenue. The PED signals, this is new to us now. And it just so happens it happened on the corner of the college, not all 4 corners, just the 2 closest to the college.
What are they actually doing with that?
The stop signs, we
Not the stop
found,
sign, the buttons.
I'm not sure what they did with the buttons. They took 2 of them with them and let 2 of them just hang there.
You just don't understand why.
I mean, unless they're gonna do with the buttons like they do the stop signs and stuff and hang them in their college dorm for fun, I'm not really sure. I mean, usually at the end of the college semester, we get a truckload of signs and stuff, cones and different items back from Penn College.
Well, you have to sheet your beer pong tables with them, Adam. That way, your plywood's expensive right now.
I understand completely.
Oh, my
Oh,
Lord.
jeez.
Ah, Dave, do you have any other questions for Adam?
I don't.
I know. The youth. Anyhow, we'll start working on this, okay, Adam, so we can start getting something on paper
Yeah.
and take it from there. So we can at least get something on, because I don't think if you don't have a piece of paper with a resolution, it's going to be hard to